Henry See Red. Henry found life boring at the works. The men worked hard to make him better, but it seemed ages before he was ready. At last, however, when he had passed the test to make sure he was mended properly, men came to repaint him. But Henry saw that instead of nice green paint, they had something very different in their paint pots. "That's not right," protested Henry. "The Fat Controller wants me to be green with red stripes, not red all over like tomato sauce." The painters laughed. "You'd look very handsome, Henry," they said, "but don't worry, this paint is a special sort of undercoat. You shall have proper green with red stripes before we've finished." "Undercoat," muttered Henry in disgust. "Whatever would the other engines say if they saw me looking like this?" The men laughed and carried on painting. Early next morning his driver came. "Wake up, Henry," he said. "There's an emergency at the big station, and the Fat Controller says you're to help." "But I can't go like this," exclaimed Henry. "They'd all laugh like anything." "No choice," said his driver. "The diesel pulling the express has failed, and the Fat Controller needs you to take over. It's either us or a long walk for the passengers, and you know the Fat Controller wouldn't like that." The fireman raised steam as quickly as he could, and Henry, blushing with embarrassment, set off for the big station. The Fat Controller was pleased to see him. "I feel so silly looking like this," complained Henry. The Fat Controller laughed. "You do look unusual, Henry," he agreed, "but you have helped me out of a very awkward situation, so don't worry about it." But Henry did worry. Soon, too soon for Henry, it was time to start. The express was heavy, and Henry felt the drag of the coaches. "We'll need help on Gordon's Hill today," remarked his driver. But they were in trouble earlier than that. As they approached Edward Station, the brakes went wrong on the last coach of the train, and they had to stop and uncouple it. To make matters worse, Donald, who should have been there to help, had been called away. Henry had to push the coach into a siding himself, and, without Donald, there was no one to help him on the hill. "Never mind," comforted his driver. "You can do it. You're an enterprising engine, remember." Henry snorted. He didn't feel very enterprising just then. The men at the works had mended Henry well. His driver gave him as good a start as he could. It was hard going, but now Henry felt fired with determination. "Let them laugh at my red paint," he snorted. "I'll show them." Slowly he struggled upwards. "I can do it! I can do it! I can do it!" he panted. "Oh dear, will the top never come?" Then, suddenly, there it was. "I've done it! I've done it! I've done it!" he puffed proudly. After that, it was much easier, and they reached the other railway quickly. The Fat Controller, who had been on the train, came to congratulate Henry. "Well done, Henry," he said. "I'm very proud of you. Perhaps all my engines should be painted red, but you have certainly earned your proper green with red stripes." Which, of course, is just what Henry got. And when he at last returned to the shed, there was a warm welcome for Henry the Green Engine.
Trevor the traction engine enjoyed living in the vicarage orchard. Edward came to see him every day, but sometimes Trevor didn't have enough work to do.
"I do like to keep busy all the time," he sighed one day, "and I do like company, especially children's company."
"Cheer up," smiled Edward. "Sir Topham Hatt has work for you at his new harbor. I'm to take you to meet Thomas today."
"Oh," exclaimed Trevor happily, "a harbor, the seaside, children, that will be lovely."
Thomas was on his way to the harbor with a trainload of metal pilings. They were needed to make the harbor wall firm and safe. "Hello, Thomas," said Edward. "This is Trevor, a friend of mine. He's a traction engine." Thomas eyed the newcomer doubtfully.
"A what engine?" "A traction engine," explained Trevor. I run on roads instead of rails. Can you take me to the harbor, please? Sir Topham Hatt has a job for me.
Yes, of course, replied Thomas, but he was still puzzled. Workmen coupled Trevor's car to Thomas's train, and soon they were ready to start their journey.
I'm glad Sir Topham Hatt needs me,
Called Trevor.
I don't have enough to do sometimes, you know, although I can work anywhere, in orchards, on farms, in scrapyards, even at harbors.
But you don't run on rails, puffed Thomas.
I'm a traction engine. I don't need rails to be useful,
Replied Trevor.
You wait and see.
When they reached the harbor, they found everything in confusion. Cars had been derailed, blocking the line, and stone slabs lay everywhere.
We must get these pilings past, said Thomas's driver. They are essential. Trevor, we need you to drag them round this mess. Just the sort of job I like,
Replied Trevor.
Now you'll see, Thomas. I'll soon show you what traction engines can do.
Trevor was as good as his word. He dragged the pilings clear with chains and towed them into position.
Who needs rails?
He muttered cheerfully to himself. Later, Thomas brought Annie and Clarabelle to visit him. Thomas was most impressed. Now I understand how useful a traction engine can be. The coaches were full of children. Trevor gave them rides along the harbor. He liked this best of all. He's very kind, said Annie. He reminds me of Thomas, added Clarabelle. Everyone was sorry when it was time for Trevor to go. Thomas pulled him to the junction. A small tear came into Trevor's eye. Thomas pretended not to see. He whistled gaily to make Trevor happy.
I'll come and see you if I can, he promised.
The vicar will look after you, and there's plenty of work for you now at the orchard, but we may need you again at the harbor someday.
That would be wonderful,
said Trevor. That evening, Trevor stood remembering his new friend Thomas, the harbor, and most of all, the children. Then he went happily to sleep in the shed at the bottom of the orchard.
At harvest time, the air is filled with the smell of fresh fruit and vegetables. The engines happily deliver their loads to market. But one day, mist and rain swirled down Toby's line. Percy was delivering a load of fresh tomatoes. Suddenly, he felt a big bump. "Bust my buffers!" Percy cried. "What was that?" The guard put out the warning flags, while Percy's driver inspected the tracks. "The earth's crumbling," he said. "We must tell Sir Topham Hatt," decided Percy. Percy puffed back as fast as he could. "I've got important news! The tracks on Toby's line are wobbly." Huffed Gordon. "Old and wobbly, just like Toby. That's not news. Can't stop to listen to your silly chatter." "Gordon never listens to me," muttered Percy. Next, he spoke to Sir Topham Hatt. "Sir! Sir!" "Not now, Percy. Thomas, you ought to collect the prize bull. He's at the farm on Toby's line." "Yes, sir." "But those tracks are wobbly," cried Percy. "They are safe enough," said Sir Topham Hatt. Bye, Percy.
Nobody ever listens to me.
Thomas was carefully chuffing through the rain. Soon he had collected the farmer's bull and was on his way back. The rain had made the tracks more wobbly than ever. Suddenly there was a deep rumbling sound. Thomas's driver applied the brakes, but it was too late. Cinders and ashes, cried Thomas. We're stuck. And they were. Late that night, Thomas still hadn't returned. Percy was worried. Thomas is in trouble, he said. Gordon and James took no notice. Worry wheels, huffed Gordon.
Fussy funnel,
Said James.
please, Percy asked his driver. Can we find Thomas?
Right away, said his driver. Percy was nervous, but his lamp shone brightly in the dark. The tracks creaked and wobbled, but Percy pressed on. Percy! cried Thomas. Thomas was very happy to see his friend.
I'll have you out of there in no time,
said Percy. Percy puffed and pulled and pulled and puffed. And finally, Thomas and his driver were free. Oh, thank you, said Thomas.
I'm glad to be useful,
Smiled Percy. It was dawn before the track was cleared. Then Percy and Thomas made their way back home.
Thomas is here,
Whistled Percy. Percy saved the day, said Thomas. Agreed the bull. I'm sorry, Percy, said Sir Topham Hatt. We must do a better job of listening to you in the future. Percy was pleased.
Chuffing, puffing along, shot and shoving. Whistles blowing their song over Sodor. Working under the sun, see them chuffing, puffing, bubbling, boiling, shot and shoving, rocking and rolling. Ground gonna quake, rumble and shake. Hear the engines coming. Everybody stop, everybody wait. Hear the engines coming. Ground gonna quake, rumble and shake. Hear the engines coming. Everybody stop, everybody wait. Hear the engines coming. Edward, Percy, Emily, Toby, and James, Gordon, Henry. Give me one more name. Shout out Thomas. Let me say it again. See them chopping, puffing, bubbling, boiling, shot and shoving, rocking and rolling. Ground gonna quake, rumble and shake. Hear the engines coming.
One winter evening, Henry's driver said, "We'll be out early tomorrow. We've got to take the flying kipper. Don't tell Gordon, but I think if we pull the kipper nicely, Sir Topham Hatt will let us pull the express. The special coal they gave you is working well." "Hooray!" cried Henry. "That will be lovely." All kinds of ships use the harbor at the big station by the sea. There are passenger ships, cargo ships, and fishing boats also come here. They unload their fish on the quay. Some of it goes to shops in the town, and the rest in a special train to other places far away. This is the train the railwaymen call the Flying Kipper. Henry was ready at 5 o'clock. There was snow and frost. Men hustled and shouted, loading up the crates of fish. The last door banged, the guard showed his green lamp, and the Flying Kipper was ready to go. Come on, don't be silly, puffed Henry to the freight cars. The cars shuddered and groaned. Trickety-trock, all right. That's better, puffed Henry. Clouds of smoke and steam poured from his funnel into the cold air, and the fire's light shone brightly. Hurry, panted Henry. They were going well. The light grew better. Signal lights shone green as they passed. Then a yellow signal appeared ahead. His driver prepared to stop, but the home signal was down. All clear, Henry. Away we go. They couldn't know the switches from the main line to a siding were frozen, and the home signal should have been set at danger, but snow had forced it down. A freight train was waiting in the siding to let the Flying Kipper pass, and the driver and fireman were drinking cocoa in the caboose. "The Kipper is due," said the conductor. "Who cares?" said the fireman. "This is good cocoa." The driver got up. "Come on, fireman, back to our engine." They got out just in time. Henry's driver and fireman had jumped clear before the crash, but Henry lay dazed and surprised. Sir Topham Hatt came to see him. "The signal was down, sir," said Henry. "Cheer up, Henry. It wasn't your fault. Ice and snow caused the accident. I'm sending you to Crewe, a fine place for sick engines. They'll give you a new shape and a larger firebox. You'll feel a different engine, and you won't need special coal anymore. Won't that be nice?" "Yes, sir," said Henry, doubtfully. Henry liked being at Crewe, but was glad to come home. A crowd of people waited to see him arrive in his new shape. He looked so splendid and strong that they gave him 3 cheers. "Beep, beep," he whistled. "Thank you very much." I'm sorry to say that a lot of little children are often late for school because they wait to see Henry go by. They often see him pulling the express. He does it so well that Gordon is jealous. But that's another story. It was a cold winter's morning on the island of Sodor. The wind was bitter and the ground hard with frost. Thomas and Percy were cold and cross. "All I want is a warm boiler," huffed Thomas. "Firelighter knows that. He's late." "He's not late," replied Percy. "This weather woke us up early." Gusts of wind swirled round the shed, tossing flakes of snow toward Thomas. Then they swooshed round Percy, too.
Why don't we talk about something else? Shivered Percy. Yes, replied Thomas. Like how silly we'll look when our funnels turn into icicles. That's not funny. Maybe we'll stop feeling cold if we talk about warm things. Like sunshine and steam. And firelighters, muttered Thomas. Scarves, continued Percy. Scarves? Laughed Thomas. That's what you need, Percy. A woolly scarf round your funnel. Thomas was only teasing, but Percy thought happily about scarves until the firelighter came. Sir Topham Hatt was enjoying hot porridge for breakfast. He was looking forward to taking important visitors on a tour of the railway and had pressed his special trousers. I shall put them in my trunk, Sir Topham Hatt said to his wife, and change into them just before the photographs are taken. Then he set off to catch his train. Percy was now working hard. His fire was burning nicely, and he had plenty of steam, but he still thought about scarves. He saw them everywhere he went. My funnel's cold, he puffed. I want a scarf, I want a scarf. Rubbish, Percy, said Henry. Engines don't wear scarves. Engines with proper funnels do, replied Percy. You've only got a small one. Before Henry could answer, Percy puffed away. Henry snorted. He was looking forward to pulling the special train. It was time for the photographs. Everyone was excited. Sir Topham Hatt was waiting on the platform for his trousers. They were in a trunk amongst a big load of baggage. The porters were taking the baggage trolley across the line. They were walking backwards to see that nothing fell off. Percy was still being cheeky. His driver always shut off steam just outside the station. Percy wanted to surprise the coaches by coming in as quietly as he could. But the porters didn't hear him either. Percy gave them such a fright that boxes and bags burst everywhere. "Oh!" groaned Percy. Sticky streams of jam trickled down Percy's face. A top hat hung on his lamp iron. Worst of all, a pair of trousers coiled lovingly around his funnel. Everyone was very angry. Sir Topham Hatt seized the top hat. "Mine," he said. "Percy, look at this." "Yes, sir. I am, sir." "My best trousers, too." "Yes, sir. Please, sir." "We must pay the passengers for their spoiled clothes, and my trousers are ruined. I hope this will teach you not to play tricks with the coaches." Percy went off to the yard. He felt very silly. On the way, he met James. "Hello, Percy. So you found a scarf, eh? But legs go in trousers, not funnels." And he puffed away to tell Henry the news. That evening, Thomas and Percy were resting in the shed. Percy's driver had taken away the trousers and given Percy a good rub-down. "Firelighters promised to come early tomorrow," said Thomas. Henry arrived. He'd enjoyed taking the visitors around and now felt sorry for Percy, too. "Driver says the weather will be warmer tomorrow. You won't need a scarf, Percy." "Certainly not," replied Percy. "Engines don't need scarves. Engines need warm boilers. Everyone knows that."
Winter on the island of Sodor can be windy and cold. When the cold wind blows, the engines can't wait to get back to the snug warmth of Tidmouth sheds. "Bitter cold, bitter cold, bitter cold," chuffed Toby. "Still, I'll soon be back in my nice dry shed." But suddenly, Toby's driver applied the brakes. He could see a farmer standing knee-deep in snow. He was waving a red flag. "My phone lines are down. All the roads are blocked, and my sheep have just started lambing," the farmer said. "They're trapped on the hillsides, cut off by the snow." "What can we do to help?" Toby chuffed. "I need a vet as quickly as possible." We'll stop at the next signal box, said Toby's driver. I'll phone the vet from there. Toby raced to the signal box, and the driver phoned ahead to the station. Sir Topham Hatt and the vet were waiting for Toby as he arrived. "The farmer's lambs are stranded on the hillside," cried Toby. "We've got to rescue them." "So we shall," said Sir Topham Hatt. "I'll send Duck right away. This is a job for an engine with a snowplow." Toby knew Duck was the right engine for the job. He was very powerful. "Hurry," Toby called anxiously as Duck chuffed out of the station. But so much snow had fallen, the tracks ahead were blocked. "We can't go on," said Duck's driver grimly. "We'll have to go back." Toby was surprised to see Duck return to the station. "I tried my hardest," puffed Duck, "but the weather's getting worse." "Even Duck's snowplow can't get through," said his driver. Then Toby had an idea. "My old branch line runs out there, sir. Remember?" "It's far too dangerous," said Sir Topham Hatt. "It would never carry Duck's weight." "It might take my weight," said Toby. "And I know that line like the back of my buffers," he added. "It's our only chance to help the lambs." Sir Topham Hatt agreed, but he told Toby to be very careful. Soon, a blizzard was howling. Toby's driver was worried. "I can do it," called Toby, "as long as these rails hold." But Toby had forgotten about the rickety old bridge. "Help! My wheels are wobbling," he cried. His driver fought for control as Toby struggled on. "I've got to reach the other side of this bridge," gasped Toby. "Those lambs need me." The farmer was waiting. It was very cold. Suddenly, a ghostly glowing eye shone through the snowstorm. It was Toby's headlamp. "You made it!" cried the farmer. "What a brave engine you are!" The vet and the farmer went to find the lambs. But they soon returned. "The lambs are safe and sound, Toby," said the vet. "But we need a place now to keep the little ones warm." Toby smiled. "I think you'll find Henrietta has plenty of room." Toby stayed for several days, just to make sure the lambs were all right. The farmer was very grateful. "Thank you, Toby," he said. "We couldn't have done it without you." "Thank you," said Toby. "There's nothing I like better than helping out a friend in need."